Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Giovanna. How are you doing today? I am so excited to start recording. I have a weird amount of energy for the time that it is for me, and the fact that I just got out of work. So I'm hoping that stays with me for the rest of this recording. Man, in my little recording setup, it is very hot in here. So, but you know what? I'm not going to put a fan on because I want you guys to have the best sound quality. And that's what I'm going to do for you. Anyway, our topic today is going to be on polyamory and jealousy. I thought, what better combination than to put jealousy with a relationship where one or two or more people are involved. Now, if you've never heard of polyamory before, we're gonna get into that right now. So basically, polyamory is when consenting adults in a relationship have sexual relations outside of their primary relationship. So you might hear me bring up primary relationship a little bit in this episode. But some things that I want to get into first off is that monogamy is when one person is with another person for a while, you know, so like, it could be a marriage where it's just a husband and wife and, they're sexually committed to each other and nobody else, or it could be, a wife and another wife, a husband and another husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. The point being is that they are sexually committed to each other and nobody else. Now, in our Western society and in a majority of societies, monogamy is considered the norm. But I want you to consider a situation where what if monogamy doesn't have to be the norm? Now, polyamory isn't for everyone. I totally understand that. But I actually was in a polyamorous relationship for a little bit. And we definitely got, quite a bit of strange topics. Now, I am someone who's a very open-minded individual and a very sex positive person. And obviously, I love talking about relationships and sex. If I didn't, I wouldn't have this podcast or would have agreed to do it. So I was actually kind of surprised, I guess. Maybe I'm just naive, but, I have a lot of friends who are also sex positive and very open-minded. So I was like, well, of course it's normal. But yeah, it's definitely, a lot of people don't understand it, and that's totally okay. Some of my partners that I had while I was in a polyamorous relationship were, pretty okay with it too. And if they weren't okay with it, obviously, I didn't move forward in that type of relationship with them. The thing with having a polyamorous relationship is that, number one, it has to be consenting. According to the definition of polyamory, consent is right in the definition. So everyone has to be consenting. Your partner and the people who you're going to bring into your relationship. Now, if you're planning on hooking up with someone who isn't your primary person, and they're not okay with that, and with another person being a part of the picture, or maybe if they're looking for something a little bit more serious, and they're not interested in something like a throuple, which is a relationship between 3 different people, that's something, or if you're not interested in a throuple, you have to respect that. And it's not polyamorous correctly if everyone isn't consenting. But yeah, I mean, there is some cool history with polyamory. Polyamory can be found in ancient Greece, in ancient Egypt. It can be found in every religion, including Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. So polyamory isn't something that, as humans, we're not familiar with. And also, I'm not sure if I talked about this in a different episode, but the character Wonder Woman has actually was created by a polyamorous couples in the 50s. Okay, so basically the guy who wrote the DC comic and created Diana, also known as Wonder Woman, him and his wife, they were a polyamorous couple. And fun fact, they were also super into BDSM, which is another podcast or another topic that we'll have to talk about on a different podcast episode. But basically, Diana was based on one of their partners that they had in their open relationship, and so. And her rope, because they were into BDSM, Diana's rope of truth has to go back to, they're really into bondage and stuff like that. So fun fact for you there, Wonder Woman, that's why Wonder Woman is my favorite superhero, and the fact that she's definitely bisexual. But anyway, basic polyamory and open relationships is not something that human beings are not familiar with. But we tend to go with monogamy. I would assume there's some sort of biological and psychological reasoning for all of that. But, as we get into a new open-minded sexual society, I believe that polyamory may become more popular. In the next couple of segments, we're going to be talking about how to address polyamory, tips on talking about maybe opening up the relationship with your partner, if that's something that you'd like to do. But if you're thinking that is polyamory even a good decision for me, first off, I do want to say that polyamory should not be used as a fix-it for your relationship, especially if there's already trust issues in the relationship, if there's already loyalty issues in the relationship. If you have a cheating partner and you think that opening up the relationship might fix it, I would highly recommend not to do that. Opening up the relationship and polyamory is different from cheating. When you're in a poly relationship, you need to have trust and rules, but that is something that we're going to get into the next segment after our commercial break. But, is polyamory even right for you? If you're a queer couple, great option. If you're someone who is pansexual or bisexual, it could be an option for you, so both you and your partner can explore all across the gender spectrum. If you are pansexual or bisexual, that doesn't mean you have to have a polyamorous relationship. If it works for you and your partner, do it. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm a bisexual person in a monogamous relationship, and I'm perfectly happy with the way things are. Another good option to open up the relationship or to figure out if polyamory is good for you is, let's say maybe you and your partner travel a lot, or you know, one partner is always on the road or something like that, or maybe even like a long distance relationship. Polyamory could be a good option for you guys to stay sexually satisfied, but also have an emotional backbone. Going back to talking about the primary relationship. Now, your primary is going to be your person. That is going to be the person that you're going to come home to at night. They're going to have your back. They're going to be the people that you can always come to and you always know that they're going to have your back. Opening up a relationship simply means that you're open to experiencing other people. If maybe you're in the mindset that there are so many people in the world and that it would be impossible to find your one and only, polyamory is a good way to experience all sorts of different people, and people other than your primary. If you have an open relationship, it doesn't mean that your relationship is any less valid than any other relationship. It simply means that you've both decided as consenting adults that you'd like to also experience sexual relations with other people. And that's okay. And also, if that isn't for you, that's okay too. Some people just know. I would tell people like, oh yeah, I'm in an open relationship. And they're like, oh my God, I can never do that. And if you know you're not that kind of person, that's totally fine. I just like to speak on what it is. So if you do have a friend or you meet someone that is in an open relationship, that you don't immediately go like, whoa, that is so weird. And why do you do that? Like, what's going on? Because, it's tough having to explain the validity of your relationship to every person that you meet. But also, if this is something that you're listening to and you would like to try it, or maybe this is something that you think you would do really well in and that you and your partner would both really enjoy, I also want to talk to those people and say that, like, hey, this is a normal thing, and here's some tips on how to open up your relationship and make it so you guys can still have a healthy, open relationship, because there are definitely some things that I would recommend you do. And these are some of these things that I did when I was in an open relationship, other things not. But yeah, it's really whatever is best for you and your partner. And I always say follow your gut. This is going to be another thing where you're just going to have to follow your gut. If you know that having an open relationship isn't something that's for you, that's okay. Just move on and go from there. Maybe in like 10 years, this might be something that comes up. When I first met someone who was in an open relationship, it was maybe like 5 years ago. And I was like, what is that? I don't understand it at all. And then about 3 years later, that's when I got into an open relationship. So you never know where life might take you. So, keep an open mind, keep an open heart. And if you meet someone or you know someone who has an open relationship, then you can kind of, know where I'm coming from. But we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back from the break, I'm going to offer you some tips on how to have the best open relationship and maybe some things to go. Anyway, we'll be right back.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back at it. I'm so happy you've decided to join us because now we're going to talk about, let's say you're listening to this and you're like, I really like that idea and I kind of want to bring it up to my partner. How do you bring it up? How do you even introduce it into your relationship? Well, I will tell you, slow and steady wins the race because having an open relationship is going to very much rely on trust and honest communication. Be very, very slow with it. With my open relationship, we had talked about it for a while before we actually initiated it. And then also I would try to slowly incorporate things into your relationship before you, if you talk about it and they're down with it, great. But, talking about it is different than actually going out and finding someone at the bar and hooking up with them. So I would slowly introduce it, into your relationship. I'm a big, fan of watching porn together. If you can watch, porn together with, more than one person, or maybe cuckolding or something like that, explore porn that will involve more than two people. Next thing is, let's say you guys go to a public place together and you both will flirt with other people while you're both there. Worst case scenario, you'll hate it and that maybe having an open relationship isn't for you. Best case scenario, you find out it turns you on very much to watch the other people, your partner flirt with someone, and you decide that maybe that's a good thing. For me personally, my current partner that I'm with, we went to a strip club, and we both got dances together, and it was so hot. It was so much fun. Highly recommend. But another cool thing too is just have a joint dating app. So you could get your Tinder and you can make a joint Tinder profile, or there are apps out there that are made for threesomes and open couples and things like that. Field is one that is good for the kink community specifically. So that might be one to look at. But I know in some places Tinder, like I said in my online dating episodes, Tinder just seems to be in the majority of places, you're going to have the most people on that app. So if you have a joint dating app that specifically says hi, we're an open couple, and looking for just hookups or whatever it is that you're looking for, that's between you and your partner, create a joint Tinder, or any online dating profile for you and your partner. And then also it's super fun to share that with you and your partner, oh, look who I matched with, and so it's fun, So start out with this little stuff to slowly introduce that into your relationship, and feel free to use those tips. They're yours. I give them to you. The other thing is, let's say you do all that stuff to slowly warm each other up to actually, to the point where you're hooking up with other people. Make sure that you establish set rules before, you start hooking up with other people. I would highly recommend one of those rules being a condom if they are needed, just for safety of everyone involved. But what if you want something that is only shared between you and your partner? I knew someone who they didn't want their partner to take a shower with anybody else. So establish however, many or as little rules that you want, as long as they are followed by you and your partner. I've also known, people who they would, text their partner, hey, today I was thinking about hooking up with someone, or this is good for traveling and stuff, or, but they would send them a text hey, I was thinking about going out with somebody, are you comfortable with that today? Because you never know if you are in a long distance relationship, or which I know is actually a podcast subject from a previous host, so I won't get into that too much, but if you're in a long distance relationship, or if you're in a relationship where you or your partner travels often, you might not know where their current mental state is at. Who knows if their self-esteem may be really bad that day, or if they miss you especially much that day. You don't want to, step on anybody's toes. But, whatever it is that you're comfortable with and your partner is comfortable with and will create the best, situation for everyone involved, include that in the rules and make sure people are following that. In polyamory, in an open relationship, if someone breaks the rules that were agreed upon, I consider that just as bad as cheating. Because there is a difference between cheating and having an open relationship. In an open relationship, everyone is under the same understanding, rules are being followed, and everything has been discussed beforehand. And that's why I want to reiterate, as I did in the first segment, that cheating, if your partner is cheating, it should not be fixed with opening up the relationship. If your partner asks you if you want to open up the relationship and you're not comfortable with it and your partner doesn't take no for an answer, that's a red flag. If your partner is not comfortable with it and they say no, you have to listen to them. And do not go out and hook up with someone after they've said no, because again, that's cheating. There's a difference between cheating and opening the relationship, so just keep in mind that everyone's boundaries are respected. And it's not polyamory if not everyone involved is consenting. So it's just cheating if you do that. Going off that a little bit, it's also important to tell the person that you're hooking up with what the situation is as well. Because, it could be awkward if they find out that you have a significant other and they're like, did I just participate in someone who's cheating? Or maybe they look you up on Facebook or something and see that you're with someone. No, you should tell them beforehand so they're not blindsided by the fact that you have a partner. And also you don't want to hurt their feelings, because what if they're looking for something more serious, and if they actually really like you and they would like to get into a more serious relationship with you, and that's not something that you and your partner have agreed upon, then, you don't want to hurt them, the person you're hooking up with. So just be sure that the person also who isn't your primary person is okay with it too. Because, that might not always be the case. If you decide to open up the relationship though, know that you are going to get weird questions and looks and all of that stuff from friends and family. I would meet people and they'd be like, oh, so you're just friends. And I'm like, no, we're not, so, and, when we broke up, a lot of people had told me oh, well, it's because you were having sex with other people. And it's no, there was other stuff going on, so it's, if you guys break up after opening up the relationship, it isn't always because of that you opened up the relationship. Their relationships are going to end. That's what happens sometimes. Unfortunately, we can't always have a fairy tale ending. If you end up breaking up after opening up the relationship, just remember that if you broke up because you did open up the relationship, because let's say you follow everything that you took it slow and you had rules and you still broke up because you opened up the relationship, learn from that experience. You did everything that you could. You tried to do the best. This is something that you wanted to do, that your partner wanted to do, hopefully. And you learned you're not into that sort of thing, and that's okay. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And I'm hoping if you broke up after you opened up the relationship and you broke up because you opened up the relationship, that might have brought out something in your partner that you didn't really like. And hopefully, because you opened up the relationship, you got to see that, and you were able to cut it off before things happened. If you end up breaking up after you opened up the relationship, but not because you opened up the relationship, please don't blame yourself and thinking that, oh, well, it's because we opened up the relationship. Because, there are other things that happened, and that's okay, and it's cool to take your experience from opening the relationship up and learning from it and being grateful that you did it anyway. But yeah, that is going to conclude this segment. In the next segment, we're going to be talking about jealousy and how to mindfully manage your jealousy. I read a really, really good article that I highly recommend. So let's say you're listening to all of this and you're like, I am the exact opposite. I could never, ever do anything like that. I am far too jealous. Now, jealousy can be negative in the relationship, but we're going to talk about how to mindfully manage that jealousy. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back. I found an amazing article, which I highly recommend that you read. It was published on medium.com, and the title of it is How to Mindfully Manage Your Feelings of Jealousy in Relationships. It was written by Angela Meredith, and it's really not that long, but she packs so much useful and really amazing information in there. So I would highly recommend this article. I'm a big component of mindfulness and being present in the moment, and it's something that I've really had to work hard for. Again, if that's something that interests you, check out my self-love podcast. But anyway, in this article, she mostly talks about jealousy from exes, from your partner's exes. So if you find yourself constantly thinking about like, oh, my current person that I'm with was with other people, and that might sound strange, but it shouldn't be looked down upon, because yes, it's the majority of adults that you meet, they're going to have other partners. They are going to have been with other people. And sometimes that can be hard to deal with and think about. And that's okay. I know some people get really defensive about this, but jealousy is a natural human trait. In this article, she actually talks about how jealousy was used for an evolutionary purpose. And to quote, it was used to bolster the family unit and cause us to reject unreliable mates. Feelings of jealousy alert us to perceive threats and possible instability in our romantic relationships. But it is our job to distinguish whether or not those feelings are not valid, but if they should be important enough for you to act upon. So the first thing to do, if you are experiencing extreme jealousy, so one, know that there's a reason why we as humans feel jealous. It's a natural human trait. Everyone does it. But so the first thing is, instead of thinking of your partner's exes as a threat or a competition, we can choose to think of them as allies. So by just reframing your thinking, it's going to make you a much happier person, and it's going to make your relationship go a lot smoother. So this person that you're with and their ex, you have both loved the same person. And also, because of their exes, they have brought your partner to you. So your partner has learned things from their exes and has figured out what they like and what they don't like, and has taught them to be a better partner and a better lover. And so they have brought them to you. And recognize the good that they have brought into your partner's life. Now, let's say they have children with their ex, and maybe you really love their children. That could be a very good positive, and that their ex has brought into your life, and that's a good thing. Or maybe if they don't have kids with their ex or something like that, let's say their ex has supported your current partner through very tough times. Like, it could be like going to grad school or a major life event, or maybe like a significant death or something like that, and that their ex was there for. So kind of think of them like that instead of as someone to compete with. And lastly, the author who wrote this says, identify the lessons your partner learned in the previous relationship. So, maybe the ex has taught them something about themselves or about other people that they have now brought into your relationship. I think a good example is like, maybe this is talking about a hetero couple. Let's say your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend taught them about like the best pads and tampons to buy. That's like my favorite thing. Or maybe like gave them sex tips or something like that. You never know what they have learned from their ex and has brought into this relationship. And instead of thinking them as someone that you should be against, think of them as someone that's on the same team as you. Now, you don't have to be best friends with your ex or with your partner's ex. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, because that might be a strange a feeling. But as long as you reframe your thinking, it's going to help you through your jealousy and learn more about your jealousy. If none of those things help, let's say you may not be jealous about a specific ex, or think about someone that your person has been with previously. Notice when those insecurities come up. I talked about this a little bit in my self-love podcast. Self-love episode, if you stay in the moment and notice when these thoughts come up, and just be in the moment and figure out, okay, when are these jealous feelings coming up? Are they coming up when, are they from like body image, money, or status? Or are they coming up with the content or quality of your relationship, which is like how you spend time together, your connection and your relationship goals? Like, is it something that is related to material aspects or relating to the quality of your relationship? And once you identify the source of your insecurity, that's when you can move forward and try to fix it by using positive self-talk. I love positive self-talk. We are constantly telling us in our heads how bad or unworthy we are. But if you are really going to have a serious sit down with yourself and figure out why are you talking to yourself like this, and when are you talking? When these things come up, what is going on around you? If you can figure out where these things are coming from, you can move forward to fix it. And that's when please do not rely on your partner to fix that. That is something that you are going to have to fix yourself. You can't be putting that kind of pressure on your partner because they can't change the way that you think about yourself. And that's something that I have to constantly work on for my self-image. So I completely understand that concept. But you can ask them for support during this time. Just, if you are open and honest with them, like, listen, I'm trying to be better about my jealousy, and I'm really trying to be in the moment with my thoughts and learn about positive self-talk and really become a better partner. I am sure that they will be open and willing to help you through that transition of yourself. Now, if that doesn't work, there may be something that is coming from an outside source. So we use jealousy as, some people view jealousy as a way of showing love. So sometimes your partner will do things on purpose to make you jealous. So it will show that you love them and that you want to be with them. Now, this can get kind of difficult because now it's coming from somebody else. That is when it's bigger than you, and it's going to require you to talk to the other person, and it's also going to require them to realize this, and you need help from both parties to come up with a resolution. But, it's being jealous is just how we're wired. Every human is going to experience jealousy. It's totally normal. But what jealousy does come with a bad connotation, and it's often trying to tell us that we might feel inadequate, and we want to be accepted. We don't want to feel inadequate, especially from the person that we love the most and that we're spending the most time with, and things like that. So it is good to be mindful in those thoughts, to really examine why you're feeling this way, if it's coming from an inside source or from an outside source. And that's when you can really work on yourself and work on becoming a better partner, a better lover, and just noticing. Mindfulness is so important to me. I love it. I think everyone should participate in it. If you just can stop yourself and examine where these thoughts are coming from, that's how you can tackle fixing thought process that you may not like, because feeling jealous doesn't feel good. Well, wouldn't you rather feel confident and secure in your relationship? And with focusing on where these thoughts are coming from, you can begin to do that. And that is so important when we're moving forward and learning about ourselves and where to go from there. Okay, so that is going to wrap up our segment on jealousy. I thought it was pretty appropriate to put jealousy and polyamory in the same episode. But stick around, because in the next segment, we're going to be talking about 10 questions to ask your partner to get to know them a little bit better. Maybe these questions you haven't really thought of before, but it'll be fun to sit down, have a beverage of your choice and talk with your partner and get to know them a little bit more. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
back. So for the next segment, we're going to be talking about 10 meaningful questions that you may not have thought to ask your partner before, but can make you and your partner know more about each other, understand more about them, and just get to know them a little bit more. So this one is pretty cool. If they could write a note to their younger self, what would you say in only 3 words? I really like the idea of taking care of yourself as a child. And I think this might be a fun and interesting question to ask the other person. Okay, so moving on to the next one is, what would you do with $1 million in your life if it was given to you right now? This is always a fun question to play around in your head, and I think you and your partner might have fun doing it, because I know I like to think about what I would do with if I just got that amount of money right now. So yeah, I know paying off student loans would be one, and then I would have enough money for a coffee. No, just kidding. Anyway, moving on. What is one difference between you and your partner that you really love? And, opposites attract kind of thing. And I always think it's really important to have some differences, because at least then you two can balance each other out. So I ask your partner, what is maybe your favorite difference? And maybe it will be the same. Who knows? And then the next question, moving right on, is going to be, what about you made your partner fall in love with you? I love reading the stories that I've seen them on like Facebook and stuff before, where people have interviewed couples and figured out what was the moment that they figured out that you two were in love. And it was always like very small moments. It was like, oh yeah, when she was driving or whatever, or like when he chased a chicken around. I don't know. Like it could be anything. But I always like those stories, and I think it's really cool, and really try to pinpoint the exact moment. Or if you can't, like just a moment that popped in your head for you. But yeah, I like those questions. All right, so the next one is a share an embarrassing moment in your life with your partner. This is going to help you two get closer together. But yeah, and it's also going to build trust within the relationship. So do something that, you haven't told anyone before, or something like that. And it's going to have that trust and understanding between the both of you, and you'll have more of an idea about where they're coming from too. This next one is really interesting. If you were able to live to the age of 90 and retain either the mind or body of a 30-year-old for the last 60 years of your life, which would you choose? Man, that's definitely pretty deep. I don't know which one I choose, but yeah, I mean, you never know. So it's funny. It's fun to talk about these things or think about these things, and especially if you're doing it with another person as well. This next one I think is really important. What is a bucket list for both of you to complete within the next year? And I like to think of this one as something that you guys want to do together. I like to think of it as like a relationship to-do list. But that sounds kind of bad. Or like a relationship bucket list also doesn't sound great, because it leads you to think that, you guys are going to die or something. But, if you guys want to travel somewhere, if you want to do something together, or maybe, I don't know, something that you guys want to do together, even if you like create a Pinterest board together of ideas or something like that. Like I know what I do is like I'll be on TikTok and I might see some traveling tips or like cheap things to do in New York, kind of thing. And because I live in Western New York, so me and my boyfriend, we might want to go to New York City when everything with COVID starts to clear up. And, you know, I'll like send him stuff like, oh, you know, we should do this or something like that. So create a bucket list with you and your partner of things that you want to complete together. Let's say you want to join a book club together, or, you know, you want to build something together, be more crafty together, anything. Create a list of things that you want to do. I think this is such a good idea and it's so much fun. And, yeah, I think I'm going to steal it as well. But, what are there any habits that your partner or you, would like to change? And maybe if it's a habit that you really, really want to kick, you and your partner can help you, or your partner can help you with that. Whether it's smoking, whether it's biting your nails, anything. So try to kick a habit with you and your partner. And by having another person there, you're going to have consistency, and you're going to have someone there to hold you to that promise. But yeah, so moving on, what were the major turning points in your life? I went to school for acting, and we had to do this thing called a life river. I don't know if this was just something at my school and in my acting program. But yeah, if you went to school for theater or something, please let me know if this was something that you had to do too. But we always joke about it. It happened in our sophomore year, and it was pretty traumatic. But basically a life river is you pick like the biggest turning points in your life and you like act them out, and it's really intense. But anyway, try to like figure out what your and your partner's life river is. What are like 3 major moments in your life, and how have they shaped you into the person that you are today? And that is the whole point of these questions, is to understand where your partner is coming from and how that affects them today, and what makes them the person that they are. Because if you know about your partner's past, you might understand some idiosyncrasies that they have, or you know, some habits that they have, or anything like that. It's going to give a more full picture than just the person that you see sitting in front of you. And I believe this is the last one, but what is the thing that you accomplished within the past year that you are most proud of? This is going to give you a chance to celebrate your accomplishments, big or small, within the past year, and with you and your partner. And you know what? Honestly, have a little celebratory thing too. I would say save this question for last, and for you and your partner to both celebrate the accomplishments that you've made. Because, you know, a lot of times, big or small, I mean, sometimes we can have big celebrations, you know, if maybe you graduated and you had a graduation party or a ceremony or something like that, or maybe it was a new promotion and you were able to have like an office party or something. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be as large as that. Open, you know, your drink of choice, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, with you and your partner, and celebrate the accomplishments that you've made. It's like, happy I lost 5 pounds, or happy it doesn't have to be 5 pounds, or happy I gained 5 pounds, or, you know, maybe happy I started saving more money this year. You know, it just, what matters is that you accomplished something, and you should take a moment with you and your partner to celebrate that you're doing it. So yeah, those are 10 questions to ask your partner. I actually, I found this list on, let's see the website. It was goalcast.com, and it's called 50 Questions to Ask Your Partner to Connect on a Deeper Level. I think all of these are really great ideas, and they're broken down on life, on your relationship, on the future, and on the past, and fun ones. So you can kind of like just go through and pick out your favorites and ask them. I only talked about 10 today, and there's 50 of them, so there is more. Or maybe I might just go back to this in different episodes and talk about more things that you can ask your partner. So if you did like these questions, let me know on the social medias, and I can go over more of them that I really like. Hopefully I don't repeat them. I should probably, write down the ones I've used. But anyway, that is actually going to conclude the podcast. I'm so happy that you've decided to join me yet again for another week. And if this is your first episode with us, please consider subscribing and rating and reviewing on Apple iTunes, because that helps so much. But we're also available on Spotify and on Google Play and all that fun stuff. I think Google Play. I know for sure on Spotify and Apple. But it would really mean so much to me, and the offer is still out there for anyone who likes all of our social media pages and gives us a review. I'll shout you out. Because also, if you like the last episode was a listener recommendation, I guess. If you have an idea for an episode that you'd like me to talk about, I am so open to taking recommendations, because it's just me on this podcast and I'm just talking to myself for an hour. Sometimes it's difficult to think of ideas that are outside of my life. So please drop your recommendations and I will use them, and I'll shout you out on here. But anyway, it's been so much fun. I will see you guys next week. Please like, follow, rate, and review, and everyone have a wonderful day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.